The following program does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Reality Radio 101, its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised. Good afternoon and welcome to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts Fred and Janet Cox right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email. Our email address is liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, right to your hosts of the Liquid Green Health Show, Fred and Janet Cox.
And good afternoon. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Must be a special Sunday afternoon. Good afternoon to our listeners and viewers across Canada, the United States, and around the globe. We are the Coxes, and as usual, you are in for an hour of edutainment for designed for information purposes only. All right. We love your comments, folks. We always love to get your comments. So please continue to send them into liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. Let us know where you're tuning in from, because that helps us to gauge where our audiences are listening from. It's a wonderful Sunday afternoon. It's nice. It's warm. It's sunny. And what else can I say? We're doing a lot better than some people, especially if you were in the Caribbean last week.
Not just the Caribbean, but the entire path of Beryl.
Yeah,
Right?
Beryl, did some damage, some real big damage last week at this time.
Some of the
People were
smaller
bracing,
countries,
they were bracing for Beryl, and she came through with vengeance. It was the first hurricane of the 2024 season, and it really wreaked havoc on the Eastern Caribbean, reaching speeds of up to 165 miles an hour. And, it left in its path 11 dead and billions of dollars in damage from Barbados right through to Carriacou and Petite Martinique. And those people are still, parts of Grenada and southern tip of Jamaica. So people that were in the path of that force, of that wind, they really took a licking.
But here's the severity. Here's the thing with that. We've all heard this is not hurricane season. We have a lot of family who went down. My niece and her entire family and two other families went down for a week, and they went the day before the hurricane.
The day before.
Right?
Wow.
And not expecting anything like that, a day or two before. And of course, they were in the middle of it. But I think for the little kids, it was a great experience. Nobody hurt. It's always good. A story you're going to talk about Danielle and family. Danielle and oh boy, her hubby.
Yeah, husband.
Yeah, I was going to say the name.
You said family, right?
But Kofi is also there, and
he went down,
a day. He went down just a day
after
ago.
the storm.
Yesterday, he went down on Saturday.
Yeah.
When the airports are just open, so he's there for a wedding. So congratulations. I don't know who the bride and groom are, but congratulations to them. And Kofi is very happy because he got his new camera. Don't know if we had ever mentioned that his
I think
stuff
we
had been
did. Yeah, his
stolen.
stuff was stolen, and
And
he got it.
kudos to Nikon.
Yeah.
The managers at Nikon who gave him a brand new top of the line camera that he could have used for his shoots here while he waited for his new camera. And there he is in Jamaica. Not a bad job, huh?
Yeah. Guys are having a vacation while working. So now, there's a guest just came in.
Okay.
Now, talking about Beryl, where it's at right now, it's just off the Gulf of Mexico, and it's expected to touch down on the southeast coast of Corpus Christi. That's somewhere around Texas area tomorrow morning.
But
So
you're just going to get the mild after.
they're getting a mild version of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still strong winds. So we wish them all the best and hope that, there won't be any damage. Now, we have a wonderful show today, folks. As you know, this is a health show. And we try to incorporate things that have a little bit to do, whether or not it has the full health aspect, as long as it can address some health issues, we try to bring it in and talk about it because it is of interest to our listeners, right? And so
we talk about anything that has to do with health. And the bottom line is health is just such a wide area. Right? And how to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And you and I were just saying today, even though we talk about health all the time, it's so easy to mess up.
It is easy. It is easy to go off track.
And you're off track, But anyway.
Because we're not ones to shy away from food. Right? You.
Especially
more
me.
so than
I agree.
All right.
So
today our guest is no stranger to regional and global conferences, whether it's on climate change, global health, or technology. Excuse me. Ronald Lwabaayi, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, is a dynamic professional with a dual background in social work and economics, serving as a beacon of change on both global and regional fronts. As co-founder and CEO of Livelihood Development International Initiatives, headquartered in Toronto, Canada, he spearheads efforts to foster international social cohesion, combat climate change, and facilitate technology transfer from developed to developing nations, particularly from global north to global south.
And I think global north to global south, I'm going to ask Ronald when he comes on, is that really the developed world and the developing world? We will clarify that.
Regionally, Ronald assumes the pivotal role of team leader for climate action in East Africa, with a keen focus on the interplay between climate change, food security, nutrition, and overall well-being. He navigates complex challenges across Uganda, Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, Southern Sudan, and Eritrea. Through strategic partnerships with governments, NGOs, and academia, and the private sector, Ronald integrates eco-social support into local networks, fostering resilience and sustainable development. At the World Bank, Ronald championed enhanced skilling initiatives, leveraging focused training platforms to empower communities impacted by environmental devastation, conflict, and other traumas. His visionary approach transcends traditional boundaries, aiming to provide holistic global services that transcend individual treatment. As a seasoned organizer, Ronald has orchestrated numerous local, regional, global conferences on climate change, global health, and investments in fintech and technology. Notably, he orchestrated the groundbreaking International Post-COVID Parade and Candlelight Vigil on October the 1st, 2023 in Toronto. This landmark event commemorated global resilience, honoring the tireless efforts of the international community in mitigating human loss and fostering solidarity in the face of adversity. Mr. Lwabaayi, welcome to the Liquid Green Health Show.
Wow, that was a long
Thank you very much.
And believe it or not, folks, there was more than that. All right. The gentleman, we are so fortunate to have Ronald. I'm going to call you Ronald. All right. To have Ronald, he's esteemed scholar, and the amount of work that you have been doing in this field, it is phenomenal. And I'm just going to mention the first time we met was at the African Union 6th region flag raising in Brampton. And you were on the podium, and I listened just to your brief introduction and what you had to say. You were introducing the conference, and I thought, this is something I'm hoping that everyone who's listening will have a chance to get involved, because COVID is the pandemic, it's one of the most controversial, talked about subject from 2020 when it first started to now.
No.
And we see no end in sight of where this is going. And we're talking not just about lay people like ourselves. We're talking about, as you say, academia. We're talking about medical professionals. It is such a divergence of opinions. So the first question we're going to ask you, Ronald, is, with everything you have done, what is the reason that you wanted to bring together a team to host this conference, and give us the name of the conference, etc.? All right. And thank you so much for being on again. Thank
you very much.
Okay.
The Liquid Green Health Show is one of the shows that any man or woman in any capacity should be listening to, because you talk about what matters today and what matters tomorrow. Without you, there is a darkness. Again, I thank you very much for hosting me today. The theme of this conference is evaluating the impact of COVID-19 on humanity, building synergies and resilience for the future global shocks. Until 2020, until a few years ago, we only one pandemic every decade. Today, every 2-3 years, there's a pandemic. We have Ebola in one decade. We had SARS in one decade. We had the influenza in one decade. But most of these...
Your
microphone. Yep.
Your mic.
Yeah.
They said the influenza.
Oh, it's gone again.
Okay, while we're waiting for him to, okay, there you go.
I think you're accidentally probably touching a button.
I was stopping, somebody was calling.
Okay.
So,
yeah, continue. Sorry about that.
So why should people attend this conference?
Yes.
One, critical knowledge exchange. It is very, very important that we all know what is happening, how it happened, and where we are going to. Number two, to identify gaps for a unified action. If you don't know where the gaps are, you don't even know what to do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We want you to be part of a historical moment where we identify existing pandemics and crisis response gaps between the Global South and the Global North. Global South is a much respecting way of saying the underdeveloped world.
Right.
Global North is a way to say the developed world.
Correct. Right.
Inclusivity in policymaking. This conference is committed to situating the concerns of women, youth, the elderly at the forefront of policies for the future pandemics and global shock responses. So your insights will help shape inclusive policies that address the diverse needs of our global community. Global resilience building. Explore and contribute the strategies for building synergies and resilience for the future of our health equity, social economics impacts, and the innovative crisis communication.
Okay. So,
then,
go ahead, finish up. Mm-hmm.
We have the global resilience building. We have the thematic excellence. We have the global village experience. We have the culture exhibition, technology and innovation showcase. And then lastly, food. Because it's what makes all of us. When we celebrate these diverse cuisines, symbolizing the unifying aspect of food and community, while discussing the pandemic's impact on the global food systems. That is what this conference is about.
Oh, wow.
And as I said, again, It is about knowledge exchange. It's about identifying global gaps. It's about removing structural barriers. It's about shaping inclusive policies.
Okay.
Together, let's build a future ready for any challenge to come.
Okay, now that is a wrap up of the entire, it's 3 days, correct? It's a 3-day conference?
We're having it 2 days.
2 days.
It is 2 days. The third day is taking our guests to see what Canada is, how our resilience has been, and let them enjoy.
Okay, so it's the 2-day conference is the 11th and 12th?
Yes.
Okay.
And on the 13th is more about having conversations outside the conference venue.
Okay, wonderful. It sounds awesome. But now you have managed to pull together various disciplines in terms of the people that are going to be there to talk. I know you mentioned governance, inventors, medical professionals, etc. Give us a more comprehensive list. And what do you hope to get from, let's pick one, let's say from the medical professionals? What are you hoping that they will bring to the table? I know you have a long list, but I'm just going to choose one and you focusing on that for us. Okay,
now, first of all, we have to have the Toronto Consensus. This is a paper that will be talked about, or people will use that when they are planning. And one of the things, they are only in 4 areas. One, climate crisis. Whatever we are doing under the sun, if we don't address climate change, climate crisis, we will be doing zero work, because it affects everybody in all our lives, on all our workplaces, in all everything, and environment. Number two, we're talking about planetary health. We are moving away from the issue of talking about global health. We are talking about life encompassing human beings, the animals, the plants, the birds,
everything.
All of it coming together if we have got to fight the diseases. And one of the theories that have been brought up is that bats have COVID-19 in them. It's their normal seed. It's like flu to us. It does not affect them.
The bats. We blame the bats, right?
The birds, yes, they have COVID. That is true. Now, the story about how it happened, where it came from, that is now history.
Right.
We don't want to go and dig up issues that will be complicated, that will have no conclusion. Exactly. What we are focusing on is what can we do as a people from all aspects of life, from, as I said, the healthcare people, the people who are in the academia, people in the civil society, people at government at all levels, come and discuss what is it that can put all of us together to solve this problem. And one of the issues that is about funding, how do we get funding for people and organizations who are putting together groups, researchers that can help us avoid
the next pandemic.
Now that's a very good point, because there have been many conferences like this around the world, particularly with nations that have the ability to fund endeavors when it comes to helping, address the situation. And a lot of it is just talk. You have wealthy nations that are pledging millions of dollars to help poorer countries combat climate change or environmental concerns. But it seems to be just talk. How do you see a conference like this addressing those concerns and getting countries that have the ability to make donations
and put the money
where the mouth is? How do you see this impacting it?
Just before you answer that, I'll just throw in just the recent case 2 days, 3 days ago with the hurricane, that almost every political, every president, prime minister from the Caribbean, that's what they talked about. Yeah. The fact that they're feeling the damage, but they don't create the problem. Yeah. But the bulk of the damage, they feel it. And they don't have the money to combat some of this, as you were saying.
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead with the answer.
Now, one of the best way when we are talking about resilience, as we saw from the global south, it wasn't about money.
Okay.
It was about people using their indigenous solutions to fighting pandemics. I will just explain this again. Because of the climate crisis, some of the vectors of diseases can no longer live in harmony where they live in their natural habitats. For the long-term diseases, that man is not used to. As a result, if we have to solve anything in this global earth, we have to take care of the issue of climate crisis today, starting from the households, what you throw out in the garbage, what amount of electricity you use in a week. No, that means that we take care of that is already a responsibility in fighting this problem. Because as long as we have the climate crisis, we shall always have diseases coming that have never been there before. Yes.
You know, you talk about that, and while you're talking, I'm also thinking there's another component that we should add to that, and that's the environmental, the toxins that help to create some of these problems, right? Because that's one of the areas that it is so well known now that the toxins that we breathe, the textiles, the commerce industry that affect us residentially, etc., it's all a part of the problem, and it's just a part of the general health consequences, just like climate change, just like everything else. There's so many parts to it that how do you get people to actually come together and talk about the whole? Because I look at I look at what you have in terms of what you want to address, and I don't know if 2 days is going to be enough to sufficiently address so many of the parts that we need to talk about.
2 days may not be enough, and I'm just putting in my thoughts here. 2 days may not be enough, and because what we are calling climate change is an inevitable action of nature, right? It has to happen. It will happen. And I do not, and this is my thinking, I do not think that there's anything that we as humans can do that can stop or negate the change of the climate. It's a cyclical thing.
Because you're going back historically.
Yeah,
like
it's just that we have never, ever experienced this. There's very little you can do to
Well, you know, you and I disagree.
Yes.
But
yes.
Let's hear what Ronald.
I'll just say this.
Okay.
That nature devours itself at a certain point of life. However, that little we can do will sustain a certain times before we get crushed. What am I trying to say? The scientists are telling us if we are able to plant 3 trillion trees in 10 years, we can cool the world. 3 trillion
trees.
Of course, Canada, we are lucky that the people who were there before us planned the tree planting. But there are some countries where even if the environment can accept the growing of the trees, they do not have the knowledge. The funding is limited. They do not have the programs that can enable. I'll give you an example. We initiated programs in Africa where when somebody dies and you go for the burial ceremonies, to remember the dead, you have to go with a tree to remember him in your compound. You plant a tree. When there is a wedding, you take 2 trees for a man and for a woman. You remember them. When somebody is born, You remember? So it means that we are having 10 trees in each family because of consequent events. And our target is to grow trees, because sometimes they don't need to plant a tree for somebody who is busy. But when you are planting a tree of somebody who has passed on, who you love, that's what happens.
Okay.
Also, the children who go to school, they have to plant a tree. And you can imagine how many children go to the school in all the Caribbean and all the
Yes.
African countries. And this does not cost money. So these are the bits that people need to be and to understand and have the knowledge that makes them to help us tame the environment. So this is the issue of money. Then number two is, if the trees that help us to have the air we breathe alongside other things, then if you know, then let's do it. And then wait for the future of what is going to happen, other than saying the nature develops itself, and then so we just have to look behind and look at it. It doesn't work. If we are able to save the energy we use, and we use clean energy, and then that it will work. Alternatively, funding as an issue should come from countries that spoil the environment. For instance, countries that are doing serious mining and the fuels, they can only mitigate that by planting trees in other parts of the world where trees can grow, so that even if the environment is disturbed in Canada,
Yes.
in the Caribbean, the forest.
Ronald,
Yes.
the sound, I don't know, Mike, can we do anything about the sound, or is it okay?
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm near.
Yeah, that's totally on your guest's end. There's nothing we can do here, so we have to just ride that out.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
the only thing I see is the bandwidth on his side is extremely low, and that's probably the main cause of the issue.
All right, no problem. But at least we can hear the bulk of what you're saying. But you know,
Yes.
I'll tell you something, Ronald. Our show, 1 hour, goes so quickly. And as we said, there's so much to talk about. So we're going to agree that the climate is a number one issue, and that if we don't get it solved, it's a problem. But now, for people who are listening, and we're talking about post-COVID, I think one of the things that are on most people's mind, two things. Long COVID, because COVID is long gone, okay? But people are still suffering the effects of what we call long COVID, as well as the long vax, right? And are you going to have, I know sometimes when we have these conferences, we tend to preach to the converted, the people who don't really need to hear this. But for the lay person, that person who's suffering from long COVID, the person who goes to the doctor and they're telling them we can't prove it, and they have symptoms that they know it was because of taking a vaccine or the consequences of having developed COVID. Are we going to have people who are going to be able to address these issues?
Yes. You see, there are three. When we did the first international COVID parade, post-COVID parade, there were so many people who wanted to come and disrupt the parade. But we told them, first of all, we are not naysayers, we are not yes-sayers. Right. We are people who are bereaved. We've lost our loved ones, number one. Number two, we had 2 years when the world slept. Why is it that the world slept? Whatever people think, whether the vaccines worked or didn't work, that's not where we are. We are at what can we do better so that we don't get into the mess we had in 2020 that make the world sleep for one reason or the other, made the schools close. Because if the children do not go to school, it means that part of your future is dead. The 2 years where flights didn't go, so people couldn't go for tourism and all that. So it made the world sleep. So what I'm trying to say is, we are going to have a conference that is a beginning of a talk.
Yes.
That has results at the end of it. When we have the Toronto consensus, we shall be using this, that the people who sat down in Toronto decided and so wished that this could be the best way to deal with the issue. And one of them is about funding gaps.
Exactly. Right.
Funded, and who should fund them?
Mm-hmm.
You know. Number two, we should talk about global health. How do we handle the issue in different ways? Because they are people who treated themselves using their local herbs in the gardens.
Exactly.
How do we support people of this kind?
Definitely.
Because they use it. It
Mhm.
doesn't need $1 million to do this. You only need to make sure that what was used does not harm others. More research and more research in whatever we are doing. Because we are not talking about just COVID, we are talking about pandemics.
So when we have, so as a result of the end of the conference now, and in preparation for this, we actually listened to culturally, we looked at different countries and how they organized and how they managed. And that's why I believe this conference is going to be good, because you're going to get the global representatives, and everything was done so differently. The way they did it in Australia was so different from China, different from the US, different from Canada. The lockdowns were different. The vaccines they pushed were different. Countries like the countries in Africa that didn't get some of the vaccines, or they
On
were
time. They didn't get it on time.
the way things were distributed.
Yeah.
I think those are the things that is going to come up big time in this conference. Correct?
100% you're correct. So people are going to discuss about the models of how they were able to succeed during the conference. And this can be emulated where they can work.
Now, in terms
I'll just also say this, that there was no vaccines in the global south.
Mm-hmm.
But we lost more people in the global north where the vaccines were.
And,
Yeah.
that's a very good point, because the research has shown that, as you said, less people died as a result of COVID.
Yeah.
In those countries that didn't get the vaccine on time, or got a different vaccine, right, than what happened in the north.
Exactly. So we want to know, why did it happen like that?
Yeah,
what did it nature? Because I was told that because there is a lot of sun, it is possible that the vitamin D. But India lost hundreds of thousands of people, but the temperatures are plus 40.
Yes.
And above. So the issue of temperature is just 5%. So what is it that they did? Is it possible that because those people eat different types of food, is it possible that they live near the vectors? What created this? You know, because if you look at everybody, when the pandemic started, and we are hearing about figures in Italy and Spain and France, and then we are saying now Africa is going to be wiped out. Because if where there is healthcare, where there are ventilators, this is the problem. In Africa, it's just going to walk through a dry shell. Nothing happened. So these are things that we would like to share during the conference.
Yeah. And do you have any information on that you can address us with now?
What do you mean?
On the reason why it
well, that's why we need them to go to the conference to hear that.
When you're in the conference, we will talk about it.
Yes.
But also, just to give, it's more about food. It's more about the resistance of our bodies that happened, because some people of the global south eat nothing unorganic.
So it's all about nutrition.
And
about how the bodies are able to fight.
Yes.
And of course, we had certain groups that were most adversely affected. As we mentioned, the elderly. The
elderly
was perhaps the biggest, the group that was most affected, and age being one of the
underlying conditions as well. Right.
But also Black people in, for example, the global north were extremely affected, again, because of diets and the underlying conditions, right?
Yeah.
No, there were two things. One was the poverty. They
Poverty.
went to work even when they had no option.
They had no
For
option.
them, it was a gap to make money.
Right.
So they said, I cannot stay in the house. I have many hours to work,
Yeah.
which had not been before. So because of this, they were on the front line. That's number one.
Correct.
Number two, because of underlying factors. You don't go to the doctor, you have issues that you really don't know, or you postpone going for treatment.
Not covered by medical insurance is one of the
You're
reasons.
not covered by medical insurance, or you are undocumented.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all these brought all these problems. So
Economics.
the category was one, elderly; two, less when the immunity was low; three, poverty. Because the rich died, but the rich young could not die when he has money. Only the people who could not, who have no, whose bodies are not strong enough, died. And here we're talking about color, because we have to be equal in everything. But it's a reality that we lost so many people from our color because of poverty and underlying. Even when the government provided the services, they got the services late, they got the information late, or they were not in a scenario where they could really get there in the shelters where all of them are together. So these are all factors.
And one of the other things I would add to that is the distrust of the system for people of color because of things that have happened in
Past
the
experiences,
past
yes.
experience. And anyway, we need to take
Yeah, let me
break.
just do a station ID. Folks, you're listening to the Coxes on the Liquid Green Health Show radio and podcast, and we're streaming live on realityradio101.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share this broadcast. You can also check out all of our previous broadcasts on Spotify and YouTube as well. And of course, you can send your comments to liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. And today, our guest is Ronald Lwabaayi, and he is the CEO and founder of Livelihood Development International Initiatives. And the conference that he's hosting is going to be next week, July the 11th to the 13th. And it's going to be here in Toronto. And, we would like as many of our listeners to attend because the information is going to be very, very informative. You're going to hear everything as to everything about COVID, what they're doing to prevent a similar pandemic attack, and how you can manage that in the future. So that's July the 13th here in Toronto, 11th to the 13th here in Toronto.
Before we go to the emails, which we will, could you tell us, so that we can say it a few times, where, if somebody's interested in attending the conference, where do they go? Where should they go?
One, we have on Eventbrite. You can buy a ticket on Eventbrite. You can buy a ticket on PayPal.
Okay.
And you can come and you can pay use a credit card when you come there. But the most important thing is be there.
But if you go to Eventbrite, what do you put in? What should they search for on Eventbrite?
You put in the first international post-COVID conference.
Post-international.
First international post-COVID conference.
Right. First international
post-COVID conference, Canada. That's where it is. And also there is a phone number. Let me see if I can find that phone number very quickly. I can give it out. That phone number, I had it just a few minutes ago.
416.
Yes.
660 233.
Yeah, that's 416 660 4233. There's also a website that you can visit. It's postcovid2024.org. That's postcovid2024.org.
Okay, so any emails?
Yeah, I think we have a few email here I can look into immediately if I can find it as quickly. Whoops, I just had it. Why is the computer acting up like this today? Any reason? Okay. You want to start?
Okay,
Or you want to
from
start?
Jane.
You want to start from
Dane.
Jane or?
Yes, from
Okay, there
Dane.
you
And
go.
Jane says, listening to you from Boulder, Colorado, and that is too bad about the hurricane carnage. Blessings to you people. We love the radio show. Please keep up the great work. Thank you, Jane. We know you're a frequent listener and we appreciate you writing in. And from Michael, he says, hello, Janet and Fred. Please remind your listeners to use sunscreen.
It is that time
was
of
our
the
show
year.
last week.
Yeah.
And so it's good to
The
read
sun, the
follow-up
sun is still
emails.
shining and it's still pretty warm.
As a matter of fact, Michael, I just want to take
Michael
this.
Ronald.
No,
Michael,
Michael,
yeah.
from the email. Our daughter Kira, she gave us sunscreen to put on our grandchildren this week because we're at the beach. And then we told her we didn't put it on because the sun was not strong. It was a
It
cloudy
was a
day.
cloudy day.
And then we have actually learned that it's still needed even on a cloudy day.
Which
So,
I
Kira,
disagree with, but
I know you disagree, but that's what they say. But
Yeah.
anyway, Michael says it is the time of year. Hey, COVID was a virus, a bad one, but so were other viruses throughout history.
correct.
But this particular virus was handled very poorly. And that's why this conference is important.
Yeah.
Because in different countries have done it. We're going to now in Canada analyze why.
Yeah.
It was a farce the way the governments of the world handled it. Shame on them.
And
Michael,
I
you
agree
seem
with
very
Michael
passionate.
100%
Yeah.
because I think everything that was told to us from the government was a lie.
Well, I don't know if you can say everything. I
Everything.
hate to say
Everything.
I
No,
don't
let
think
me
you can
elaborate.
always
Here-
generalize.
no,
We have a guest.
No, hold on. This is why I'm saying it. When they
Okay.
first came out, they gave a description of the virus. They said it's a virus that is in a lipid envelope, and all you have to do is wash your hand with hot, warm water, as warm as you can take it with soap. We know the soap will destroy the lipid envelope. And then they suddenly changed. They got into the vaccine. So they were lying all the time. Anyway, here's an email from Shane, and Shane says, hi, LG. Is there a conference here in Toronto? Yes, there is, and I'll give that information a little bit later.
So the conference we're talking about, Shane, it is going to be in Toronto. It's actually going to be at the Metro Convention Center downtown in the South building. There's two buildings, North and South. So make sure you get the right one.
Right,
Okay.
and it's on July 11th to the 13th.
And I'll
Here's
let you read this one.
Here's an email from Greg, and Greg says, "Amen to Fred."
As
He
usual.
is absolutely, and that word is underlined,
Yeah.
absolutely right. The Earth has gone through this so-called climate change way before the human race contributed to it. We have scientific proof of this with core samples, etc. So taking people's money will solve climate change, but not cure cancer or diabetes, etc.
BS.
And he ended with the phrase BS. All right.
Oh dear. So, I mean, Ronald, we talked about the diversity. We talk about the vast array of opinions when it comes to so many of these issues. And from Jim says,
yeah, go ahead.
So we can give billions of dollars to solve climate change and prevent COVID with vaccines, which it did not. But we can fix potholes on our roads. A shame and a scam.
And that's that gets very political, and he's right, but it depends on where the politicians put their priorities to spend our money. But this conference, folks, is not just about the past of what happened with the pandemic. It's how we can look to
the future.
And mitigate some of the things that we as humans can do.
So that's why I want to get back to Ronald right now with a question. Ronald, you talked about technology, and we're living in a world where AI is the forefront, whether from ChatGPT to the medical hacks. Are we going to be able to, from the list of people that you know that will be present, what's going to be the emphasis on technology for the future in terms of preventing pandemics like this, or just dealing with something like long COVID?
Now, the issue of, we are not really talking about only COVID. We are talking about the future of pandemics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Different pandemics coming up, preparing the world for anything that can create a stagnancy like what happened for us for the last 3 years. Now, not only was the impact felt there, but up to now,
Yes.
half of the buildings, the tall buildings you see in Toronto, the top offices are not working.
They're empty.
People have yet to get back to work because they've spent 2 years, everything is foreign. Most of the companies collapsed, new companies came up, but others collapsed.
Yeah.
This is a two-way thing. Some people lost their lives, some people married the widows and the widowers got married. So this is part of the resilience, but the total resilience of the total. There are those who lost business, those who, it's a new world order that has been pushed by post-COVID. There were always new things that needed to be put together, but there was this chance that people took 2 years to think about what next should be done. And one of the issue is to support and to pump IT in different scenarios.
Right.
It means that when you are not part of this new reality, you are finished. Businesses, lifestyles, we no longer have to wait many hours to get something done when you can do it on the internet.
Correct.
And it's much faster now. We have never had a time in life when you experience the power of the computer. But now everybody knows that without the computer, even before the 2020, people had computers, but there was not a time that people now basically do shop, live, enjoy, everything rotates around a computer. In the past, in the Black communities, the global South, people sat down around a fire and told about the tales of the past. Now you just click on a button and you know what happened in 1871. So things have changed. Number two, education has changed and will change to survive because the education we have is education of the Industrial Revolution. Now we are talking about people are innovating every day. You cannot even beat the speed of innovation now.
Yes, but you know, with all of that said, Ronald, what I realize is that, yes, the technology is there, it's going to get better, but yet people were doctors, some of the medical researchers, a lot of folks during the last pandemic were not able to voice their opinions. A lot of them were silenced, right? So even though we have the technology, what do you think is going to be the outcome when the information is not necessarily going to be available? Or, you know, I was reading where it says in terms of the data that was released, Pfizer, as one of the companies, was told, yes, they need to release the data. And they said, yes, they would. And the FDA said it would be released, but it was going to take like 55 years before the entire document could be seen. And of course, the judges riled against that. And I think in 2021, 2022, 2023, they actually started releasing thousands of pages per month until now the whole document is out.
They basically had to be forced by the court to speed up the process.
So even though the technology is there and we can learn, there just seems to be, that's why I think people are kind of thinking, is there any kind of a cover-up? I don't know.
Well, the issue of cover-ups have always been there in times of history, many cover-ups all the time. But our focus now is what do we do, whether they are cover-ups or no cover-ups. What is it that puts us together to face the next pandemics? You know, if they are cover-ups, how do we avoid those cover-ups from interfering with humanity? That is where we want this human discussion to take place, not artificial intelligence to discuss about this. You see, so we have passed beyond the issue whether or what would have happened, because it happened. What is it that we can do together to stop the next either cover-ups or pandemics that are not taken care of? So this is where we need discussion to go.
Correct, because you know that in families like the polarity between families, whether they took the vaccine or didn't take the vaccine, and that caused so much stress within a simple family, right? And between countries. So what do you hope? What will you consider success at the end of this conference? What is it that, if you had to put it in a nutshell, what are you going to say? You know what? We had a fantastic conference and these are the outcomes. What's success for you?
Success is only one word.
Yeah.
You being there.
Okay. Good answer.
The more people are there, is information.
Because the people will say from the bottom of their hearts. So it is impossible for you to say the success will be like this. But the fact that human beings will be talking to each other, that is the biggest success we're going to have. And we'll be having a conversation of the future. That is the success. And models that made people live in areas where we didn't expect them to survive. That is success.
Okay. And oh my goodness, whenever we talk post-COVID, right? Whenever anything post-COVID, I come back to this all the time. Some people say, well, the COVID, like one of our writers just wrote in, there's always been something around. There's always been a flu, a virus, something, right? But this one was so polarizing. And for the first time in our lives, we heard in Canada anyway, they said there was no flu.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There was
no evidence of flu recorded.
Everything was COVID. And I believe that's why a lot of people
still have doubts as to whether or not this was real.
Distrust.
Yeah.
One of the doctors we were listening to, he actually talked about MECFS, which he says is long COVID, and it has been around for a long time. And then we come back to what you say. It's not just about a flu or a COVID virus. It's about the other things we need to do, the nutrition, the way we need, other things we do to just stay healthy. And you mentioned, Ronald, that some people, no vaccine, and they survived COVID, especially some of the younger people. Because if you're eating right and doing the things you need and you're supplementing, it shouldn't have been that drastic.
A perfect example is us. We never took the vaccine, but we stayed true to our nutrition.
The exercise, the sleep.
We stayed true to our nutrition. We put a lot of confidence in that, and we were able to avoid anything that's known as COVID.
Then people who took it because of travel. So the whole social milieu around the world changed. But Ronald, did you have any kind of personal experience with COVID? Is that this?
Oh, yes. I lost my partner to COVID.
Oh, really? That's so sad.
And that brought the fight inside me. And I said, I've been with her for 13 years.
Wow. Very sad.
How would we deal with a scenario like this? So it made me research. I'm an economist. It made me do the research, do the numbers, and find that they are not only me. There are millions of people who think like me. And how do we now move forward?
Yeah, that is so
Today,
sad.
we remember the people, we remember the people who died in the Second World War. We have a date for remember the people who died, and the Remembrance Day where nobody has yet remembered the people who have died.
Yeah.
COVID-19. Canada lost about so far around 57,000. The US in millions, and the whole world is about 7.5 million people. But we have not yet come up with dates where we celebrate their lives.
Yeah.
So this is where we are going to remember, to make us prepare for the future.
Yeah. And that's so important, because so many have lost relatives. So many have lost their lives during this pandemic. And yet there is, as you mentioned, there is no recognition of that loss. People just have to bear it. And when people are talking about their concerns and the issues that they faced during the pandemic, it is swept under the rug. And you're left to feel as though you're the only one out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even the doctors are upset because some doctors who used to treat a certain way
Yeah.
during the pandemic, things have changed and they couldn't do what they would normally have done. So this conference, I know, thank you so much for being here, for talking about it,
Yeah.
for letting people know that that there is work to be done.
Yeah.
And we believe that. I know we're going to be there, right?
Yeah.
Do we get a discount? I don't know how much it is yet.
Please come, be part of the conversation.
All right.
Yes.
We have a couple more
But
emails.
before I get to that, let me thank our guests and then we'll get back to it because we're almost out of time. Folks, you are listening to the Liquid Green Health Show, and our guest today is Ronald Lwabaayi, and he is the CEO and organizer of CEO and founder, of Livelihood Development International Initiatives, which is holding a conference on July the 11th to the 13th in Toronto.
First COVID
International conference, right?
Yes, on Eventbrite or PayPal.
You can get information by just calling 416-660-4233. That's 416-660-4223.
Start again.
4233.
416-660-4233.
Okay, ma'am, you
Great.
got it right. You can also visit the website at postcovid2024.org. That's postcovid2024.org.
And we had 2 emails. Quickly, I want you to squeeze them in because they're giving you all the kudos today.
Yeah. I
What
can
is
find it. Yeah, there you go. And here's one from Tim. And Tim says, Fred, remember when the government stated to us that we needed 2 weeks to flatten the curve for the virus?
Yes.
That is BS. They ruined people's livelihoods, separated people from their family members on their deathbeds, screwed up families, businesses, etc. Lies, lies, lies for us, for any virus. Wash your hands. Don't sneeze or cough on anyone. Stay home if you're sick. That's it. Usually, no medication can help a virus. What a waste. Thank you for that. And here's one from Darlene. She says, yay to Fred. Right on. Fred is right.
Oh my
I got
goodness.
it.
Ronald,
I
this
got
is
it
what
today.
I live with. The extremist Fred is always right. But
Always right.
there's always many sides to a story.
And with
All right. And if you lost somebody during COVID, it's sometimes a different story.
It is a different story
So
when you're in that bucket. But once again, I'd like to say thanks to Ronald Lwabaayi for gracing our show and giving us an opportunity to hear what is happening July 11th to the 13th, folks.
And Ronald,
get your ticket, get out there. This is important information.
I really want to sincerely thank you because we know this is the weekend before the conference. I know how busy you are.
Yeah.
I know how busy it was for even to send your bio. So we appreciate it. And I know it's not just you, it's a team. And we're hoping to meet some of those folks from I can even imagine the travel just to get people here. So good luck on the conference. And thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And here we are.
Thank you. With that, folks, we are going to wrap our show up. You've been listening to the Coxes on the Liquid Green Health Show. It is a radio show and podcast, and we're streaming live on realityradio101.com. Please, check us out on YouTube or Spotify and send your comments to liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. Also, remember this is how we always close our show. We want to say good health is at the core of human joy and overall well-being. Its influence is profound, extending beyond personal vitality to significantly bolstering prosperity and economic advancement. Thus, investing in your health is akin to investing in a brighter, more prosperous future for ourselves and the community in which we inhabit. So until next Sunday, same time, same station.
Prioritize your well-being. This is Janet and Fred saying,
let's stay healthy
on
Reality Radio 101. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts, Fred and Janet Cox, right here on Reality Radio 101.